What if I told you that one of the deadliest inventions in human history was discovered by accident, by alchemists searching for the secret to eternal life? It sounds like something out of a movie, but it's the true story of gunpowder. Today, we're diving deep into the smoky, explosive history of how ancient China stumbled upon this world-changing substance and how it forever altered the face of warfare. Our story begins in the Tang dynasty, around the 9th century. Chinese alchemists, a mix of mystics and early scientists, were obsessed with creating an elixir of immortality. They spent countless hours in their labs, mixing exotic ingredients, hoping to unlock the secret to living forever. They experimented with everything you can imagine, from strange herbs to toxic minerals. One of their key ingredients was saltpeter, also known as potassium nitrate. They knew it had some interesting properties, but they hadn't yet unlocked its full potential. In their quest, they would meticulously document their experiments, noting which combinations produced what effects. One day, a particularly brave or perhaps just careless alchemist mixed saltpeter with sulfur and charcoal. Instead of an elixir of life, they got something far more dramatic. The mixture didn't just burn, it deflagrated. It exploded with a flash of light and a cloud of smoke. An ancient text from around 850 AD describes this moment perfectly, warning others not to mix these specific ingredients because their workshop had burned down and their beards had been singed off. They had accidentally created the world's first chemical explosive, gunpowder, or as the Chinese called it, huoyao, which literally translates to fire medicine. Ironically, this fire medicine, born from the search for eternal life, would become a tool for taking it. But that didn't happen overnight. At first, gunpowder was seen more as a novelty, used for fireworks and dazzling displays at imperial celebrations. Imagine the awe of the court, seeing brilliant bursts of light and color painting the night sky for the first time. It was pure magic. But the military minds of the Song dynasty, which followed the Tang, saw a different kind of potential in this explosive powder. They began to weaponize it, not in guns as we know them, but in more primitive forms. One of the earliest examples was the fire lance. This was essentially a spear with a tube of bamboo or paper attached to the end, filled with gunpowder. When ignited, it would shoot out a jet of flames, sparks, and debris for a few seconds. It wasn't about killing with a projectile. It was a shock weapon. Imagine being a soldier facing a wall of charging infantry, and suddenly, they unleash these roaring dragons of fire. The psychological impact would have been immense, scattering horses and terrifying enemy troops. From the fire lance, the technology evolved. The Chinese started adding shrapnel to the gunpowder tubes, things like bits of metal, pottery shards, and pebbles. Now, the fire lance wasn't just a flamethrower. It was a primitive shotgun, capable of inflicting real, gruesome injuries. They also developed the first bombs and grenades. These were often ceramic or cast iron shells filled with gunpowder, with a fuse that was lit before being thrown or launched by a catapult. These thunder crash bombs could shatter fortifications and wreak havoc on enemy formations. The Song dynasty was constantly at war with northern invaders like the Jurchens, and later, the Mongols. This constant pressure fueled rapid military innovation. They needed an edge, and gunpowder was it. They created rocket-propelled arrows, called fire arrows, which could be launched in massive volleys, raining fire down on their enemies from a distance. They even developed naval mines, anchored just below the water's surface, to blow up enemy ships. Warfare was no longer just about swords, spears, and bows. A new, terrifying element had been introduced. But the real game-changer was the cannon. The transition from a fire lance to a true cannon was a crucial step. It involved creating a barrel strong enough to contain the explosion and channel its force to propel a single projectile. The earliest known depiction of a cannon, or hand cannon, comes from a 12th century sculpture in Sichuan, China. These early cannons were small, often made of bronze, and looked more like a metal vase on a stick. They were inaccurate, slow to reload, and probably just as dangerous to the user as they were to the enemy. But the principle was there. A metal tube, using a chemical explosion to fire a metal ball. The age of the gun had begun. So how did this revolutionary technology spread from China to the rest of the world? The primary vehicle for this transfer was the Mongol Empire. In the 13th century, the Mongols, led by Genghis Khan and his successors, swept across Asia. When they conquered parts of northern China, they encountered gunpowder weapons for the first time. The Mongols were masters of adaptation. They quickly recognized the power of this new technology and incorporated Chinese engineers and siege experts into their armies. As the Mongol hordes pushed westward, they brought gunpowder with them. They used cannons and bombs in their sieges across the Middle East and into Eastern Europe. Accounts from the Battle of Mohi in 1241 describe the Mongols using catapults to launch bombs against the Hungarian army, causing panic and chaos. Europeans, who had only ever faced cavalry and archers, were stunned by these noxious and sulfurous blasts. Through the Silk Road and these military encounters, the knowledge of gunpowder formulation slowly seeped into the Islamic world, and then into Europe. Arab scholars studied the Chinese texts and improved upon the recipes, making the powder more potent. By the early 14th century, recipes for gunpowder were appearing in European texts, like those of the English friar Roger Bacon, who had likely learned of it through Arab sources. Once gunpowder arrived in Europe, it lit a fuse of its own. The fragmented, constantly warring states of Europe were the perfect incubator for firearms development. Unlike China, which was a large unified empire with more centralized control over technology, Europe was a hotbed of competition. Every king, prince, and duke wanted the latest and greatest military hardware to gain an advantage over their rivals. This led to a rapid arms race. European blacksmiths and engineers refined the cannon, making it bigger, stronger, and more reliable. They developed iron casting techniques that allowed for mass production. The massive bombards used to shatter the walls of Constantinople in 1453 were a terrifying testament to this new power. The age of castles and stone fortifications, which had dominated medieval warfare for centuries, was coming to an end. A well-placed cannonball could do what months of siege could not. Alongside the development of cannons came the rise of personal firearms. The crude hand cannons evolved into the arquebus, and later the musket. These weapons changed the very nature of the battlefield. No longer was a soldier's strength and skill with a sword the most important thing. A peasant with a few weeks of training on a musket could now kill a noble knight in full-plate armor from 100 yards away. This had profound social and political consequences, helping to dismantle the old feudal order. The world had been irrevocably changed. Gunpowder-wielding European powers were able to project their influence across the globe, leading to the age of exploration and the rise of colonial empires. The same technology that the Chinese had discovered while seeking eternal life became the instrument of conquest and global transformation. It's a fascinating journey. From a smoky alchemist's workshop in Tang, China, to the battlefields of the entire world. The accidental discovery of fire medicine didn't grant immortality, but it did grant humanity a new, terrifying power to shape its own destiny, for better or for worse. It's a powerful reminder that sometimes the biggest changes in history come from the most unexpected places. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this journey back in time, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you don't miss our next historical deep dive. Let us know in the comments what other world-changing inventions you'd like to learn about. See you next time.